Thank you for purchasing the AccuPro 633 Spin Relief Reel Grinder. Please read the manual before operating the machine and follow all safety instructions. This machine has safety features that will make the grinding process both safe and efficient. Never bypass the built-in safety features and keep all doors closed during the grinding process. This video will guide you through the 4 steps to properly sharpening your reels. Step 1. Placing your cutting unit. Step 2. Positioning the grinding head carriage. Step 3. Spin grinding. And Step 4. Relief grinding. Let's look at the components of your machine. Your machine has been shipped with 2 different diameter spin grinding wheels and 2 different diameter relief grinding wheels. The relief grinding wheels are the narrow wheels. Your machine also includes the AccuPositioning gauge for setting the height of the reel and positioning the carriage to the reel. Your machine uses a spin drive motor that includes adapters to fit most cutting units. The spin drive motor spins the reel when spin grinding and indexes the reel during relief grinding. Your machine may also be equipped with an optional hoist system or workstation for lifting and placing the cutting unit into the machine. Now, let's take a look at the controls. There are several manual controls on the machine. The main power switch supplies power to the control panel. The switch is located on the side of the machine next to the fuses. The green reset button energizes the control panel and resets the emergency stop. The red emergency stop button disconnects the power to the motors and puts the control into emergency stop mode. The traverse speed knob controls the speed of the traversing motor that moves the grinding head left and right across the reel. The square green traverse direction button reverses the direction of the traversing motor. The spin speed knob controls the speed of the spin drive motor for spinning the reel during the spin grind cycle. The torque knob controls the amount of torque applied by the spin drive motor for indexing the blade during the relief grind cycle. The traverse switch turns the traversing motor on or off. The spin drive motor switch turns the spin drive motor on or off. The spin motor direction switch selects the direction of the spin drive motor. The spin torque selector switch changes the spin drive motor from spin to relief mode. The grinding motor switch turns the grinding motor on or off. The in-feed speed switch selects between fast, rabbit speed, or slow, turtle speed, when in-feeding or down-feeding the grinding head. When the grinding head is on, the in-feed speed will default to slow, turtle speed. The in-feed down-feed switch selects between in-feeding, raising the grinding head up, and down-feeding, lowering the grinding head. The reset check button is used with the LED alignment indicators and is located behind the door of the AccuPositioning gauge storage area. Next, let's take a closer look at the mechanical components of the grinder. The AccuReel selector adjusts the rear roller V-mounts to accurately position a cutting unit in the grinder based on manufacturer and reel diameter. The rear clamp secures the rear roller into the V-mounts. The front height adjuster secures the front roller. This assembly accommodates various rollers and groomers by moving up and down with a ratcheting mechanism. The front clamp and top plate assembly adjusts in or out as needed to avoid interference with the grinding head. Simply unlock the lock handle and push or pull on the assembly to change its position. The AccuPositioning gauge and height stop are used with the LED alignment indicators to position the carriage both horizontally and vertically to the reel. The gauge is also used to set the height of the reel. The counterbalanced spin drive motor can be positioned on either side of the cutting unit. The pivoting and floating action of the motor assembly provides a direct connection to either side of the reel. To manually move the grinding head during setup, release the traverse actuator. The finger and body assembly has 2 positions, spin grinding and relief grinding. To change between the spin grinding and relief grinding positions, pull out the plunger pin on the left side of the grinding head housing and rotate the finger and body assembly until the plunger pin re-engages. Now let's begin the grinding process with step 1, placing a cutting unit in the machine. Press the main start switch to turn the machine on. Pull out the red emergency stop button and press the green reset button. Move the AccuReel positioner to the recommended location for the manufacturer and reel diameter of the cutting unit. To move the AccuReel positioner, move the locking knob on the right-hand side to the unlocked position. Pull up on the positioning pin on the left-hand side. Push or pull the positioner assembly until the pointer aligns with the recommended position on the decal. Release the positioning pin on the left side and move the positioner assembly until the pin locks into place. Now is a good time to set the relief angle adjuster setting. Rotate the finger and body assembly up into the relief position. Set the relief angle adjuster to the corresponding relief setting indicated on the decal. The relief setting is the small number shown on the decal next to each manufacturer. To move the relief angle positioner, turn the relief angle adjustment knob clockwise or counterclockwise until you reach the recommended relief setting. Load your cutting unit into the machine and place the cutting unit's rear roller into the rear V-blocks and the front roller under the front roller clamp height adjuster. The optional hoist system helps to load cutting units from the front or rear of the machine, depending on the door configuration. The optional workstation helps to load cutting units from the rear of the machine. If your cutting unit is not listed on the decal on the left side of the AccuReel positioner, such as a walking greens mower with a fixed cutting unit, you'll need to use the position lock knob on the right side of the AccuReel positioner. To use the right side position lock knob, pull up on the left side positioner pin and rotate it 90 degrees to lock the positioner pin in the up position. Move the AccuReel selector plate and cutting unit until the center shaft of the cutting unit is placed at an approximate 1 o'clock position relative to the grinding wheel when observed from the right. Check to make sure there is enough clearance for the relief grinding operation. After you've determined the correct location, rotate the right side position lock knob to the locked position. Insert the rear roller clamp into the slot behind the cutting unit and rotate the T-handle 90 degrees. Slide the clamping bar over the cutting unit's rear roller and push the locking arm of the clamp down to secure the clamp in place. We're now ready to set the height of your reel. Place the AccuPositioning gauge on the lower pin on the right side of the grinding head. To press the locking tab on the AccuPositioning gauge to allow the gauge pin to travel to the center of the reel shaft. Secure the gauge in place with a lock handle and then lower the gauge pin back into the gauge until it locks into the locking tab. Place the height stop on the gauge pin of the AccuPositioning gauge. Release the locking tab on the right side of the AccuPositioning gauge to allow the gauge pin with the height stop to travel up to the reel blade. Check that the height stop is lined up with the center of the reel. You may need to rotate the reel blades slightly until the height stop rests against a blade. Release the lock handle on the left side of the front height adjuster. Adjust the front height adjuster up or down with the ratchet on the left side of the adjuster. You may need to change the directional setting on the ratchet. Move the front height adjuster until the lever of the AccuPositioning gauge aligns with the decal on the gauge. Relock the lock handle on the left side of the front height adjuster. The top plate on the front tooling can be moved towards or away from the cutting unit's front roller as needed by unlocking the front plate lock handle and sliding the front plate. Slide the front plate 1/4 inch or 6 millimeters past the roller so the roller rests on the top of the plate. Retract the gauge pin back into the AccuPositioning gauge until it locks into the locking tab. Check for clearance between the grinding head and the front tooling. The grinding head must not contact the front tooling as the head traverses back and forth during the grinding process. Clamp the front roller of the cutting unit to the front tooling. We're now ready for step 2, positioning the carriage. Before you begin positioning the carriage vertically, you must reset the electronic indicator. The LED alignment display is located behind the AccuPositioning gauge storage door. To reset, press the blue Reset check button. and hold it for 3 seconds until all 3 LEDs flash twice. Unlock the gray lock handle on the cross slide. Move the grinding head to the left side of the reel until the position mark on the accupositioning gauge aligns with the position mark on the front tooling bar. Depress the locking tab on the accupositioning gauge to allow the gauge pin to travel to the center of the cutting unit shaft. Rotate the accupositioning gauge on the mounting pin, front or back, until the gauge pin aligns with the center shaft of the cutting unit. Secure in place with a lock handle. Press the blue Reset check button. The red and blue LEDs will flash once. Retract the gauge pin back into the gauge until it locks into the locking tab. Move the grinding head to the right side of the reel until the position mark on the gauge aligns with the position mark on the front tooling bar. Release the gauge pin, being careful not to change the angle of the accupositioning gauge, and allow the gauge pin to travel to the center shaft of the reel. Press the Reset check button. The red and blue LEDs will flash twice. One of the LED indicators will continue flashing. A flashing red LED indicates that you need to turn the gray hand wheel clockwise, while a flashing blue LED indicates that you need to turn the gray hand wheel counterclockwise. The flashing LED will flash more rapidly as the carriage is moved closer to the correct position. Rotate the gray hand wheel until the green LED illuminates. When vertical positioning, your final hand wheel adjustment should always be counterclockwise, moving the carriage up into position from below. This provides a positive load on the threads of the screw and prevents any backsliding. Retract the gauge pin into the locking tab of the gauge. You may wish to verify the positioning by moving the grinding head back to the left side of the reel. Release the gauge pin to allow the pin to travel to the center of the reel shaft. If the green LED indicator is still on, you're finished with the vertical positioning. If the red or blue LED is on, then repeat the vertical alignment process. When finished, retract the gauge pin into the locking tab of the gauge. The horizontal positioning process is basically the same as the vertical positioning process, except that you must move the accupositioning gauge to the upper pin position on the grinding head, and you must use the orange hand wheel to make your adjustments. Once the carriage is correctly positioned, remove and store the accupositioning gauge and lock both the gray and orange lock handles on the cross slide assembly. We are now ready for Step 3, Spin Grinding. Select the spin grind on the Spin Torque Selector switch on the control. Rotate the finger and body assembly to the spin position. This rotates the fingers out of the reel blade path. Install the 1-inch, 25mm spin grinding wheel. Install the spin drive motor with the correct adapter to the side of the cutting unit. The spin drive motor assembly can be moved to either side of the cutting unit and attached directly to the end of the reel or drive system component. Press the spin drive motor direction switch to select clockwise or counterclockwise rotation for the spin drive motor. The grinding wheel and the reel should spin in the same direction. Press the in-feed switch position to raise the grinding wheel until the wheel just touches the reel blade. Then use the down-feed switch position to lower the grinding head until there is clearance between the blade and the wheel. Set the travel limit to the grinding head by either manually moving the grinding head or by pressing the traverse switch on the controller. Move the travel limit sensors out to allow the grinding wheel to clear both ends of the reel. Move the grinding head to the left until the right edge of the grinding wheel just clears the left side of the reel blade. Move the left-hand travel limit sensor in until the small light on the base of the sensor illuminates. Move the grinding head to the right until the left edge of the grinding wheel clears the right side of the reel blade. Move the right-hand travel limit sensor in until the small light on the base of the sensor illuminates. Make sure that the transverse actuator is engaged. Close the doors before starting your test grind. The grinding wheel motor and spin drive motor will not operate with the doors open. Press the spin grinding switch to turn on the spin drive motor. Press the grinding wheel switch to turn on the grinding motor. Verify that the reel is spinning in the same direction as the grinding wheel. Move the grinding wheel so that it's underneath the reel. Press the in-feed switch until you see some light sparking. Press the traverse motor switch to on and allow the grinding head to traverse across the reel to find any high areas. If the grind becomes too aggressive, press the out feed switch to lower the grinding head until you can travel the full length of the reel without grinding too heavily. Set the traverse speed knob to approximately 15 feet per minute, 4 meters per minute. Press the infeed switch to infeed the grinding wheel while the grinding head traverses across the reel. The grinding wheel will continue to infeed as you hold down the switch. When spin grinding, the speed of the spin drive motor is very important in achieving a high-quality grind. Use the spin speed knob to change the spin speed. Generally, the spin speed for spin grinding is between 180 RPM and 380 RPM. After you have finished spin grinding, turn all motors off using switches. You may open the doors and inspect the reel. Repeat the spin grinding process if necessary. We are now ready to start Step 4, Relief Grinding. To start the relief grind process, press the spin drive motor switch from spin mode to relief mode. Set the spin motor direction switch so that the reel will rotate in the opposite direction from the grinding wheel as the reel indexes from one blade to the next. Replace the 1-inch 25mm wheel with a 3/8-inch 10mm wheel for relief grinding. You'll find that a smaller diameter grinding wheel works better on smaller diameter reels and reels with more blades. Set the gap between the fixed finger and the grinding wheel by unlocking the lock handle at the rear of the assembly and sliding the assembly up or down to adjust the gap between the fixed finger and the grinding wheel. The gap should be between 1/16 and 1/8 inch, 2 to 3 millimeters. Pull the left side plunger pin and rotate the finger and body assembly up into the relief position, counterclockwise when looking from the right side. You have already set the relief angle earlier, right after you adjusted the AccuReel positioner to receive the cutting unit. This setting is very close to factory specifications, but it can be adjusted as needed by turning the relief angle adjustment knob on the grinding head. Push and hold back the index finger while using the infeed switch to move the grinding wheel up until the reel blade is trapped between the fixed relief finger and the grinding wheel. Adjust the wheel up or down until there is a small gap between the reel blade and the wheel when the blade is against the fixed relief finger. Now check for clearance between the grinding wheel and the reel blade just above the one you are grinding and confirm the relief angle. To decrease the relief angle and increase the clearance between the grinding wheel and the blade above, rotate the relief angle adjustment knob counterclockwise. To increase the relief angle and decrease the clearance, rotate the knob clockwise. Next, use the index stop knob to adjust the index pin until there is approximately 1/32 of an inch, 1 millimeter of free play behind the reel blade. This setting allows the reel blade to freely transition from the index pin to the fixed relief finger each time the reel indexes. Move the grinding head to the left until the grinding wheel just comes off the blade, but the blade still remains on the fixed finger. Move the left-hand travel limit sensor to compensate for the narrower relief wheel. Traverse the head back to the right travel limit. Check that the fixed relief finger has cleared the blade and that the indexing relief finger is positioned to catch the reel blade as it indexes. Press the spin drive motor switch to on. The spin drive motor will apply a torque load against the fingers. The relief torque knob setting should be about 15. The torque can be easily adjusted using the torque knob, but it should never exceed 45. Press the grinder motor switch to turn on the grinder motor. Press the traverse switch to on and traverse the grinding head all the way to the left, watching for proper clearance between the grinding wheel and the reel blade. Check for proper clearance between the index finger and the front side of the blade on the return trip to the right traverse limit. Also, verify that there is enough clearance between the fingers and the reel blade spiders. Stop the traverse on the right traverse limit and verify that the reel has properly indexed and advanced to the next blade. If the reel has not fully indexed to the next blade, increase the torque setting on the spin drive torque knob. If the reel blade is indexed too aggressively, decrease the setting. Watch the grinder to ensure that it's cycling properly. If the grind is too light, press the in-feed switch, raising the grinding head. Set the traverse speed knob to approximately 15 to 25 feet per minute, 4 to 8 meters per minute. After you've finished relief grinding, turn all motor switches off. You can now open the doors and inspect the relief grind. Repeat the relief grind process if more back blade removal is required. Congratulations! You have successfully sharpened a reel on the world's finest grinder.